Roderick's son watches as his father is killed. Clark tells the knights to search for survivors while mourning Roderick, but Pride mocks him, calling his death weak. Clark defends Roderick, saying he gave his life to help others escape, but Pride dismisses it as they died anyway. She isn't concerned about the losses, saying she can always recruit more knights and names Clark the new captain. Roderick's son knows Pride foresaw the tragedy but did nothing to stop it. Angry and wanting revenge, he decides to become a knight like his father and cuts his hair, determined to seek justice. Meanwhile, Pride and Roderick survive a cliff collapse, much to everyone's relief. The knights are glad to see their captain alive, and Pride orders them to arrest the enemy while they tend to Roderick's injuries. The knights wonder who Pride is, and Roderick reveals that she's the princess, shocking everyone. Later, a report shows no one died, making the knights happy, but Stale regrets sending Pride into danger, unable to protect her. Roderick tells Pride to return to the castle immediately, and they discuss a future meeting. Back at the castle, Pride thanks the knights for keeping her role in the fight secret. When asked how she knew the enemy had special powers, Pride says it was because of her ability to see the future, but it was really her knowledge from the game. Roderick scolds Pride for going into battle alone instead of alerting the knights. Pride explains that they wouldn't have arrived in time and that only she could make it there quickly due to Stale's limitations. Roderick insists that knights are ready to die for the country, and her actions nearly dishonored their way of life. He says that if she had died, it could have caused despair in the kingdom. Though Pride understands his point, she knows that Roderick's son would have been devastated if his father had died. Roderick lectures her on the value of her life, saying she's worth more than they are and shouldn't risk her life for them. Pride acknowledges his point, but insists that she saved more than just Roderick. She also saved the knights, who will protect many more people in the future. She tells the knights to focus on saving lives, rather than dying honorably. Pride tells Roderick that he doesn't understand his own value, and that even if he were just a regular soldier, she would have still saved him. She lives for the people as their princess, and won't allow needless deaths. However, she apologizes for causing trouble. Clark expresses his disagreement with the royal family getting involved, but thanks her for saving the knights and Roderick. Roderick's son steps forward, thanking Pride for saving his father. He reveals that he has special powers, but didn't think he could be a knight. After seeing his father in danger, he regrets not being able to help and asks Pride if he can still become a knight. Pride encourages him, saying he has the strength and kindness to protect others. The boy promises to protect her, revealing his name as Arthur Bursford. Pride is surprised because Arthur is a love interest in the game and destined to become the captain of the knights. She foresees his future success, but warns him to kill her if she ever becomes an enemy of the country. Roderick, deeply emotional, thanks Pride for saving his life and is happy to see his son's determination to become a knight. Arthur, however, vows to protect Pride, no matter what, even if the world turns against her. When Arthur was young, he wanted to become a knight like his father. However, after discovering his special ability, which was only useful for farming, people pitied him. Despite training hard, his ability didn't change, so he thought about becoming a farmer instead. After meeting Pride, Arthur regained his determination to become a knight. He resumed training with his father and asked to learn more about Pride. In one training session, he tried to hit his father but was pushed back. Roderick was impressed, thinking Arthur was more talented than he had been. Arthur's mother was surprised when she learned he wanted to become a knight. Roderick quickly left, leaving behind his sword, saying he had something to do. Pride thought about how, in the game, Roderick died at the cliff, which led Arthur to hate her and seek revenge. However, she was happy that she had encouraged him to follow his dream of becoming a knight. Pride later visited the knights and told Clark she had something to return to the captain. The knights, who had grown fond of her after the last mission, quickly gathered to see her. Roderick showed up, and Pride noticed he had hurt his head. Clark explained they had been drinking all night, and Roderick got injured after training with Arthur. Pride was glad to hear Arthur had started training again, and Roderick mentioned that Arthur was asking about her. Just then, Arthur arrived with Roderick's sword and became embarrassed when he saw Pride. The knights smiled, but Arthur quickly prepared to leave. Clark suspected Arthur wanted to say something to Pride, but Arthur said he would wait until he became a knight. Before Arthur left, Stale invited him to join his training as a partner. Arthur agreed, and Stale took him to the training room. While talking, Arthur found Stale's smile suspicious. Stale encouraged Arthur to be informal and treat him as a friend. During their training, Stale was surprised by Arthur's skill and asked if he had really taken a break. Arthur insisted he hadn't used a sword in years. Stale suggested that Arthur try out for the knights, shocking Arthur, who still saw himself as a beginner. He thought it would take 3 more years of preparation, but Stale believed Arthur was ready and offered to help him. Curious, Arthur asked why Stale was pushing him so hard to become a knight. Stale explained that it was to protect Pride. Even though Pride was strong, Stale worried she would be reckless in the future. Stale recognized Arthur's potential and wanted him to protect Pride as well. Although Arthur felt inexperienced, he agreed, thinking of how much he wanted to protect her too. Stale revealed that Pride had changed his life, and he owed everything to her. He vowed to live for her and wanted Arthur to be her sword while he acted as her shield. Arthur agreed, and they started getting along, with Arthur teasing Stale about his creepy smile. Pride spends her time studying the country's laws, determined not to follow the dark path her character took in the game. In the throne room, Gilbert informs Pride that Val, the man she captured, is responsible for the disappearance of knights from an allied kingdom. Val had set up an ambush after extracting information from captured knights. Rosa, aware of Pride's growing knowledge of the laws, asks her to pass judgment as the future queen. Pride remembers Val from the game where her character used him to fight Tiara. Although the captured knights are still alive, they need Val's help to rescue them. When asked for judgment, Pride declares that Val's crimes are serious enough to warrant execution. However, knowing his skills are needed for the rescue, she proposes a fealty contract to keep him alive until the knights are saved. Pride approaches Val and explains that the contract would strip him of his free will, possibly making it worse than death. When asked how he wants to be punished, Val simply states that he doesn't want to die. After considering this, Pride decides that once he serves his purpose and helps save the knights, he will be released. Rosa instructs Pride to finalize the contract. Both Pride and Val sign, and the contract takes effect, binding Val to serve the royal family and live a peaceful life free from violence. Later, after the knights are rescued, Pride speaks with Val. He calls her a monster, which upsets Stale, but Pride chooses to release him anyway. Before letting him go, she gives him two final orders. First, he must protect Tiara in any emergency. This surprises everyone, but Pride insists Tiara's safety is a top priority. The second order is that Val must return to Pride if he ever needs help. As Val is escorted out of the castle, he asks Pride why she's being so lenient. Pride admits that her decision might be based on fear, but she feels everyone deserves a second chance. Stale, however, thinks Val deserves a harsher punishment. Pride explains that Val wants to live, which is why she allowed him the opportunity for redemption. Meanwhile, Tiara worries that Pride asked Val to protect her because she's weak. Pride reassures Tiara, saying she loves her and simply wants to protect what's important. Pride also tells Stale that she loves him and wants to remain his older sister forever. She is happy to be with both Tiara and Stale, and she asks them to remember her love for them, even if something bad happens in the future. As the knighthood exam approaches, Pride, Stale, and Tiara meet with Arthur. Pride says they will watch him train every day to encourage him. Stale and Arthur begin sparring, and their training continues for several days. While the boys train, Pride and Tiara pick flowers. Tiara gives the boys flowers chosen by Pride, explaining their meanings. The flowers for Stale symbolize intelligence and success, while Arthur's represent heroism and strength. Tiara places the flowers on their heads, commenting on how good they look. As the day of the knighthood exam arrives, Arthur bids them farewell and heads off to take the test.